Ah, great. Look how big he is. Say hi to the camera. Hi guys, welcome back to the Daika podcast. So you probably clicked on this because you're kind of wondering about the concept of an inner circle and your relation or your development of it. So my general advice is probably going to be for people who are around the ages of 16 to 22. For reference, I'm 25. So my worldview is going to be, or this advice in particular is going to be limited to this age group in particular. Um, if you don't fit that, completely fine. But just for reference, it's going to be in that kind of area. When evaluating your ideal inner circle of friends, I think one of the biggest questions that you should be asking yourself is, why do I need an inner circle of friends in the first place, right? Or I guess just inner circle in general. It doesn't have to be friends. It could, family could be included. Certain people within your communities can be included depending on your bubble, right? If you have, let's say, a Catholic bubble, a gay bubble, or an academia bubble, right? It's really dependent on what you would like that what that inner circle to look like, right? And an inner circle doesn't have to be a group of friends. Like the way that I have set up my inner circle is that most of my friends don't really interact with each other, and I would describe my inner circle of friends as people who I can share the intimate parts of my life with, and or like the intimate moments of my life with, right? And that's why it's kind of important to think about why you need this in the first place, because once you understand why you need an inner circle, you can start to look for people that can fulfill those needs, right? And on top of like finding people that fulfill those needs, it's kind of important to understand why they're in your life in the first place, because it's so easy to take people for granted. And if these are the closest people to you in your life, I generally think that it's pretty much in everyone's favor for you and for everyone involved that there is an understanding of, oh, this person is in my life because XYZ, right? Some people might call that a transactional relationship. I wouldn't say it's transactional, because if it's transactional, you're just, for the most part, it's one and done. I would call it more like a mutualistic relationship, where it's similar to having two organisms that help each other out in order to survive. Whereas when I think transactional, I think you could have this one deal. Once that deal is done, you're gone, right? Like a very easy transactional relationship would be if I were to pay you for a service, like for example, to teach me um, how to program, right? That's a pretty transactional relationship. There's nothing else there that would be that would go above and beyond, right? In terms of emotion, in terms of building a life of its own, right? Because people that are within your inner circle, they're gonna, I would imagine they'd be pretty well integrated in your life. Integrated here doesn't mean that they live nearby you, that you see them periodically, but rather there's an effort on both sides to create a relationship that works for the both of you, right? Like, so some of my friends I see once a week, some of my friends I see once a year, some of my friends I see once every 2 years, right? And it just kind of is dependent on you and what type of qualities you desire. And this is kind of like uh, the next question that you should really be thinking about is, what qualities do I desire in a friendship, right? Um, like, for example, if you want friends that are generally interesting, right? What goes along with that? Like, you, if they're interesting, then they have to be curious as people. When people are curious, what do? They do um, research, they do deep dives into practicing their curiosity, right? They generally are able to have difficult conversations. When I say difficult, I don't mean just emotionally difficult, but I mean difficult questions as in there might be something outside of their realm, but they're still able to have that conversation about that subject that is outside of their realm of expertise, right? Um, and I think that's an important skill to have. But this is kind of like an example of, oh, I want someone interesting. Well, what does interesting mean, and what kind of other details go into an interesting person? The third thing I would think about is, do any of these qualities contradict each other? And I don't think that this is something that most people think about when they are thinking about what is my ideal in a circle. Just because I don't think a lot of people put in a lot of thought into the relationships that they're building in the first place, right? Now, if you're here, then you're probably thinking consciously about, oh, what do I want in my relationships? And I think this is an important question because we could want a lot of things in life, but sometimes we don't think about, do these qualities even mesh well together, right? Like, for example, you want someone who's ambitious, someone who is a go-getter, right? But at the same time, you want someone who's going to be in your life, someone that you're going to be seeing consistently, like they're going to be your neighbor, you're going to have kids together and everything. Sometimes these two things don't come together because if you want to live a quiet life and a life that isn't too hectic, but you want friends that uh, friends that are super ambitious and they are out in the world doing things, like they for the most part are not going to be in one place all the time, and they're not going to have a lot of time for you, right? So like this, so the consistency might not even be there, right? So these are things where when you're developing a relationship, um, thinking about possible contradictions allows you to reframe your relationship with someone to be a lot more realistic and a lot more down to earth, right? And to also to avoid putting unrealistic expectations on someone else, because that's not a general feeling that you want to put someone into, right? Because again, these are kind of your own ideals for what your inner circle is going to be and what your um, relationships would ideally look like. And this is something that you should be thinking about in general. And from here, we're probably going to be thinking about like, okay, how do I form an inner circle? I think one of the most important parts is understanding yourself. If you don't have an understanding of how you work, a lot of this is going to be you meeting people, you getting to know them and interacting with people, and from having someone develop alongside with you, it's a lot easier to develop some level of introspection because you're observing someone else's life and you're able to contrast that with your own, right? And it's a lot easier to develop nuance within your own life and how you as a person work when you're able to see, let's say, the black and white in things and then all the shades of gray in between. And that's kind of important to be developing those shades in between. The other thing that I would also be emphasizing is the idea of practicing, right? So you should be practicing, like, for example, the qualities that you desire in a friendship, right? Practicing giving grace to someone. If someone messes up, your how much grace are you going to give them? Can you give as much grace as you want to be given to you, right? That's an important skill to have in a friendship because people mess up, you mess up, it's fine, and it's important to not react in a way that is going to be detrimental to your friendship, right? Sometimes it is important to overreact. Sometimes it's important to not overreact, right? Your emotions and the people and your inner circle's emotions are tools to facilitate a healthy relationship, right? You shouldn't. They aren't a good thing. They aren't a bad thing. they are just emotions that are giving you feedback, right? And that's how you should be thinking of emotions sometimes, because they are important. And this kind of leads me into the next important thing when forming your inner circle is what is the soul of your relationship, right? Um, what is the nature of your relationship? Having soul in your relationship is really going to be the thing that creates an everlasting inner circle, right? Because you don't want to be trapped in let's say sentimentality, right? You want to have a relationship with someone or with someone's where you and the other people are coming together and developing some type of unique relationship that is that would be hard to articulate. What does that look like? I have no fucking idea. I just know that at the stage of life that I'm in right now, in 25, that's something that I'm slowly developing with my friends. And like for reference, I see my friends maybe once a quarter or once a year or sometimes once every 2 years, depending on the friend, right? I don't really see my friends that often, but that's just because I want to allocate time for myself for the things that I'm doing personally. So the next general topic I wanted to talk about are like mistakes that we can kind of make within while we're developing our inner circle. And when you're a young adult, everyone is learning. You're learning, but these are pretty common mistakes that I want to point out. And the first one would be keeping friends because of sentimentality, right? You're keeping your childhood friends because they're your childhood friends. And for me personally, I don't think that's an adequate reason to keep someone in your life, right? And I'm not saying uh, have a oh goodbye or anything dramatic like that. Sometimes the best thing is just to allow people to fade out of your life because you're in a new phase and now they don't exactly fit into your life as well, right? And it is a struggle to keep those sentimental friendships together, but I don't think sentimentality is a good reason to maintain a relationship with someone that was in your inner circle in the past and maybe they're not in anymore, right? Um, if they are also developing as a person, uh, and they fit into your life, that's great, right? But I would avoid keeping someone in your life because of sentimentality. Because sometimes they might not have developed in a way that is beneficial for the both of you, right? Sometimes people just bring out the worst in you and you don't even know it, just because you might end up going to different schools or you might have other friend groups or different bubbles that cause the two of you to diverge in in your life, right? And that's okay. Now, if you want to keep that in your life, that's you and the other person have a lot of work to go through to bridge that divergence. And that's just the nature of people that evolve. It is what it is. And the next thing that I wanted to point out is not having admiration for friends. I've come across a lot of people in life that tell me a lot about their friendships. And I think when you don't have admiration for the people that you call friend, you have a pretty low standard for what a friend is, right? And I find that these people tend to bad mouth their friends. And I want to make a distinction between bad mouthing your friend and then talking about your friend's flaws. Those are two different things, right? People are flawed, but there's an understanding that their flaws aren't detrimental to your friendship and that they're just flaws, right? It's not, no one's perfect. But there's also bad mouthing your friends where you kind of are ranting about them. They're kind of, you or them or whatever the nature of your relationship is kind of hindering the friendship in some type of way. Like it could be something simple where they don't really acknowledge your emotions, and that causes friction in your friendship, and they don't have that much in their life that is really helping them, so you don't have that admiration for them because of those reasons, and then you're just bad mouthing them. Stop that. They're not your friend. Like you're not treating them as your friend anymore. They might have been your friend in the past. The reality is in the present, um, and in the present, you're bad mouthing your friend. So put that friendship to rest and just move on with your life. Because if you're taking time out of your day to badmouth someone, that kind of says a lot about you and how you treat your inner circle. Which kind of leads me to the next thing that's important is conflict resolution. I think so many people fail at conflict resolution, and this is kind of like a skill that you have to develop on your own. I don't have any general advice besides learning how to be as open to exploring as many ideas as possible and training yourself to dismiss any instant reactions that you have to something and taking the time to explore topics or subjects, right? And also learning how to emotionally articulate, oh hey, you know what, this is kind of my boundary, this is how far I can go for now, but we can revisit this topic in the future, right? um, Learning how to take time to deal with conflicts between you and other people, that's kind of important. And honestly, there's a lot more that I could dive into. If you're interested, feel free to leave a comment down below. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. I hope to do more of this in the future, and I would like to have a good feedback loop, just to be quite honest. Thanks so much for joining me in this podcast. I'll talk to you later.